And welcome back, fellow American patriots, standing at the ready to fight anew for the first time in 2026. CR Podcast, your host, Daniel Horowitz, here at the Blaze. Really happy to be here with you. I've been chomping at the bit, obviously, over this 2 week vacation to get out and talk to you, not just about Venezuela and the Somali fraud in Minneapolis and the judicial tyranny, but so much going on. This is the year of the 250th anniversary of our country. And I think it's a good time to announce the theme for this year: meeting the moment. Meeting the moment. Literally knowing what time it is. At 250 years, with our country failing, our economy failing, demographics, society, sovereignty, security, everything seems to be going wrong, but it doesn't have to be this way. We could seize our own destiny. We could return to God. And that's what we're all about here. I'm really excited to announce some new, exciting endeavors this year for our movement, our get together. As you can see, those of you watching, I will try to post as much of the show on video at Horowitz Show on YouTube and at CR Podcast on Rumble, as well as obviously iTunes or Stitcher, where you guys hear the audio. But I want to make this as accessible as possible on as many platforms. We're going to delve into all the issues we left off last year. I want to give you a little bit of a sampling today of what I feel are the dozen or so most important issues. So we'll do some admin stuff, we'll do some fun things, we'll introduce some fun ideas. But we have to begin with meeting the moment. Meeting the moment. And I'm not gonna, spend so much time just talking about my vacation and your vacation. I'm just gonna cut right to the chase. The most important dichotomy between this show and pretty much everyone else in this business on the so-called right is the following point of contention. Everyone else is going to tell you that the most important thing looming over this year is the November midterm general election between your banal, stupid, boring, subversive Republican and your communist Democrat. And that's the most important thing to focus on. And everything in civilization is going to hinge upon the outcome of that election. But in fact, that's not true for two reasons. Number one is, barring any cathartic change in the economy or the country, Republicans are going to lose no matter what. Okay, they're going to lose the House. They're going to lose a lot of the state power in purple states like Georgia, Arizona. But number two is, even if Republicans would somehow battle it to a stalemate and things would change, they'll have the same power that they currently have, which leads me to my main point. Right now, the most important thing is not, what will happen in a midterm that is already pretty much baked into the cake and doesn't matter anyway. But what will Trump and Republicans do with the current power they currently wield? Will they rise to the occasion? Will they meet the moment? And I want to discuss very vividly, as we always do, what that looks like. What are the things we need to do? But I got to say, this is where we are right now, where we're caught between gay and retarded. So you have the gay Republicans that are, with the pom poms and yay GOP, yay Trump. Everything's great. Just vote GOP. Oh, the economy is amazing. Look at the stock market. You have those people. That's pretty gay. And then you have the retards that maybe will agree that things are going to hell, but then they'll just introduce a bunch of unhelpful conspiratorial stuff to gain clicks and monetization on their accounts. And we're caught with the same melees and no solutions. So, what I'm here is to lay down a marker at the beginning of the year, not just in terms of what we're going to focus on. You certainly have the state legislatures that are all getting into session, but what Trump can and should be doing. Here's the good news. Here's the good news. No matter what, Republicans will lose this election. Okay. So it's not like, oh my gosh, if I play it safe or I don't do anything big on entitlements, on welfare, on immigration, maybe I could skate by and not make waves and not lose the election. No, you're going to get crushed no matter what you do. And in fact, if you do bold things, you'll at least juice up base turnout to ensure that red states don't fall. The purple is gone. You're not going to win it in an economy like this. We've seen dozens upon dozens of examples of that. Frankly, even when Biden was in power, certainly now with Trump owning the economy. So that die is cast. That cake is baked. So that's kind of liberating. So now the moment is this. Think back to January 2021. Tomorrow's January 6th. I think it's a good time to reminisce about that. That was a pretty miserable time to be alive. We were in the throes of COVID. Biden had just won. He had this sort of Stacy that he was marching around the National Guard in the wake of January 6th. You had the arresting of people. You had the censorship. You had the COVID fascism. You had BLM running loose, Antifa, the tranny stuff. And as I noted last year, you go back to 2021, and we all agree that none of the benefits of Trump 1 existed. They were washed away. And we were worse off in 2021 than we were in 2015, 2016, when we thought it was pretty bad. The goal of everything we do this year should be aimed at preventing that. Now, I don't mean, preventing Democrats from getting in. There is no way of preventing that, at a federal level at least. But we're at a crossroads to ensure that when, not if, Republicans get crushed in 2026 and 2028, we'll be left with some vestige of the benefit from this tenure and build red state fortresses. So what we don't want to hear about is, just how many seats are the Republicans going to have federally? Are they going to win the midterms? And then J.D. Vance for president. Like, whoa, wait a minute. So we're abolishing primaries, not focusing on 2026 primaries. Heck, we're trying to abolish 2028 primaries and just the next 2 general elections. No, how about you use the power you currently have to do the following things? Let me give you the broad principled vision and then the specific dozen or so items that will achieve them. And then we'll talk about Venezuela and some of the news that we missed over the break, and obviously breaking right now. Venezuela, the courts, Mamdani taking over New York City, the Somali fraud in Minneapolis. Those were some of the big stories over, what was otherwise a quiet Christmas, New Year's break. So the goal right now, if Trump were willing to move away from Qatar Akbar, from big tech Akbar, is to open up an economic future. Open up some sort of economic future for the country. Stem the demographic tide. Push long-term reforms that are harder to undo when Democrats come in. It's impossible to make it permanent, but this means you're going to have to push for budget reconciliation, push for law changes. And then finally, really the most important one is building red state fortresses so that red states don't fall to Democrats, but that more importantly, even if they don't, the Republicans that you nominate in primaries aren't Democrats in all but name only. So you actually have primaries. competitive primaries. And that's really where we need to go here. So you see what I mean? It's not a matter of what we should do in the next election or to win this election, but actually what to achieve based on your win in the previous election, pursuant to the power you currently have. See, Republicans typically operate in a 2-year cycle between every election. So the first year they spend with full of excuses and a defensive posture of, well, here's why we can't fulfill the promises that we ran on the previous year when Democrats were in charge. We don't have enough power. They never have enough power. It's not feasible. And then now, so that was 2025. Now we're on 2026, which is the second year of this 2-year cycle, which is essentially, well, do you want the Democrats? We can't allow the Democrats to win. Vote GOP and promote whatever the top line GOP talking point is because the Democrats are so bad. All the while ignoring that you currently wield a trifecta nationally and supermajorities in all these red states where the legislatures are convening. And now is your opportunity in those states and somewhat federally to A, achieve the policies we want, B, cement them and make them harder for Democrats to reverse when they get in, and C, here's the irony, the more you accomplish, the better you'll do. Now, I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that even if Trump did everything on my list, especially after squandering the first year with the most capital and the economy already being so bad, that somehow you're going to, win this election. Historically, anyway, the party in power loses. But the point is, if you're going to get up there and basically tell the American people that the economy is great, you're going to lose red states. So you got to open an economic future, stem the demographic tide, push long-term reforms that are harder to undo, build a red state fortress. But in order to do this, Trump is going to have to recognize that the economy is bad, and he's going to have to show that he's pursuing bold action to fix it rather than bragging about how good it is, because then you get nothing. See, at least if you rail against the economy, you're like, look, I inherited a bad economy. It's not good now. We're trying to open up some things. You could at least create a rationale to try to push for something that is useful. But moreover, you're identifying with people that are struggling. Right now, the difference between pushing what we're going to talk about, our agenda, and, just this Marie Antoinette sort of look at my gold ballroom in the White House and look at the stock market and look at OpenAI, I mean, then we're screwed. Then we're screwed. So that is the point of contention. Are we going to recognize that Republicans are likely going to lose no matter what? Democrats are going to come in. Mamdani type of people are going to take over in 2026, 2028 federally. So what should you do if you know that's going to happen federally? What should you do federally and in the red states that you should control, but you got to make sure you don't lose them? What should you do to build that fortress now so we don't wind up in January 27, January 29, the way we did in January 21, except 10 times worse, as it always gets? And let me just say, the broad theme for this is a lot of people are talking about one of the big news stories of the New Year's is that Zohar Mamdani took over. He was inaugurated in New York City, and he just went all out. You'd think you kind of be a little bit more unifying, reach out to your opposition, He's like, no, we're done with rugged individualism. It's time for collectivism. And then he appoints Ramzi Qassam, who is literally a 9/11 Al Qaeda defense attorney, to be the chief counsel of the government of the largest city in America. The Al Qaeda lawyer is now the chief counsel of the city in which his clients flew planes into the biggest buildings and killed almost 3,000 people. They go big or go home. Where is our Mamdani? Where is our leadership that's going to go big or go home, win an office, win a trifecta federally or state, and due to those states, due to Texas, due to Idaho, due to Wyoming, what Mamdani has done to New York City? Where is that? Because I'm not seeing that. But that's the thing. Everyone's going to say the biggest story now is, oh, what's going to happen in the midterms? That is not the biggest story. It is, what are you going to do right now to build red state fortresses, and the actions you do federally are targeted for the most important issues, the time they matter, and the most strategic way to make it harder to be undone. That, my friends, is what meeting the moment looks like. So I want to get to those issues. But first, there's a lot more to do. I want to do some admin stuff. I want to do talk a little bit about Venezuela. And then we'll get to my quick list of, I think, about 13 items. 13 items we need to focus on. And by the way, feel free to let me know what you want to focus on this new year. Daniel Horowitz at starchmail.com is the email. And speaking of which, I wanted to make this a little bit more collaborative. I want to announce some new exciting things. So I'm not great with video. Last year, I just put the interview segments on video. I'm going to try to put most or all of the show. Today, it's going to be the entire show on Rumble, CR Podcast, YouTube. You can find me at Horowitz Show. But, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about myself. We're just going to do this the first day because it's important. I can't get information out if nobody sees me. And one of the things I mentioned towards the close of the year, I started to realize I was talking into the abyss. I have about, 235,000 followers on Twitter, but it turns out 90% of them aren't seeing what I'm putting out. And with this algorithmic enshittification of the internet that AI algorithms have created, it just turned the internet into a bunch of scrolling 8-second mindless scrolling nonsense. So if you don't tickle the algorithms, you don't get anywhere, which is why we don't have statesmen, we don't have leaders, we don't have people trying to solve problems, because they're just trying to put their viral video, strategically aimed in a certain way. I was always wondering why you're seeing all these like weird mannerisms on Twitter and Facebook, these weird questions. So somehow these people have studied how to tickle the algorithms. So like this, I have no desire to chase algorithms and change what I do. At the same time, if I spend another year talking into the abyss and, only you guys see it, my goal is to actually change the world, to actually implement. And I don't care about clicks. I want influence, but you have to have a certain amount of clicks to have influence. So, with that, I'm going to try to do more video. I'm going to try to cut short videos from what we do. I'm not really very good at that and could use some help. So we're going to definitely going to need you to spread the word on the YouTube and Rumble channel, whichever one you like. We'll see which one does better, and then maybe we'll move to one. For now, we have both. But that leads me to my most important announcement of the year that I'm going to try. And some of you have seen this over the break. My Substack, simply at Daniel Horowitz. It's called Liberating Truths, but you could just put in either one. At Daniel Horowitz, my full name is the handle. what do I like about Substack? So obviously, I have my columns, my in-depth columns, subscribe to the Blaze TV. But my problem is that my Twitter is not being seen. Facebook is forget it. Videos are still tough. And everything is a matter of, okay, you could subscribe to me on Twitter at RM Conservative, and then you could literally go for 5 years and never see anything from me because they won't show it to you. So now what you follow, you don't see, and what you see, you never even subscribe to. The enshittification AI just, pumps it out. And that's how they've really, it's one of many ways that this AI business has degraded just the quality of the internet. We've gone backwards, not forwards. So that and that really has destroyed the right in America because it made it that in order to make money doing politics, you got to follow the algorithms. So that's where I thought over the break, I said to myself, you know what? I don't want to sit and just be a Twitter whore all day. I mean, I'm going to post there, but Substack is different than all of them because Substack doesn't work on algorithms. If you subscribe, you get it. It's directly in your inbox. So what I started to do is this Daniel's Digest. A lot of you have complained over the years. I'll cite a lot of information. You're like, oh, well, is there any way to put notes? So on iTunes, I have like a little brief description, but all the hyperlinks and everything. So, and then a lot of times I talk about my stack of stuff here, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, my stack on my table that I often don't have time to get to. So what I'm gonna try to do once, twice a week, I put out a few Daniel's Digest. So at the Blaze, I have my long form, in-depth columns on particular political policy issues of the week. What I'm gonna do on Substack and Liberating Truths, this is what's liberating when you're not dependent on anyone, is where I'm gonna answer to nobody but you. You subscribe on Substack and it's a short form commentary. So I'm just going to have, 10 to 20 links divided by foreign policy, economy, and immigration, AI technocracy, the issues we talk about, primaries and red state legislation, and just very short form, punchy like kind of a roundup, Daniel's Digest. So I've put out a couple of them. I put out one today. If there's any columns or interviews I do, will all be in there. So sort of a one-stop shop for people that have always struggled. Where do I find you? So I could find your columns at the Blaze and then, your podcast on iTunes. So this will be a clearinghouse, everything for me. And my goal is, as you well know, my goal is not for clicks and monetization, but to spread the word of truth. Because what's the point if people don't see it? So when I say subscribe, all it means is free. Put in your email and it will be sent to your inbox if you want it. And then that's it. There's no algorithms. There's no interference. This is the best medium. I think the freest medium that I could see. So my hope is to keep that just a free subscription, meaning you just put in your email and that's it, and nothing more to do. Now, what I'm toying with, and I'm curious your feedback. Let me know if this is something that you're interested in. But again, so that I'm not dependent on being an algorithmic whore, for a lack of a better term, like everyone else, to have a tiered paid subscription, a small fee per month, where we would do one thing I haven't done is live talk, where we do just Q&A. So those of you who are having issues on certain policies, data centers being built in your area, primaries that you feel no one's paying attention, you could bring it up to me live in front of everyone. And this is how we can have a town hall. And I'm willing to do just Q&A, maybe a few times a month, maybe twice a month. Now that I can't make it open to everyone. There's a lot of crazies out there. So I would make it some sort of paywall for that, and then you have access to it both live, or if you can't make it, then the video of it will be sent out to your email. Now, as you well know, I don't act my age. I act more like an 80-year-old with with technology. So I'm still learning this, how to do this on Substack. There's a way of doing it through text based where people will text me stuff and then I could read it. I would rather do it live where you could come on and visually or maybe even video. You could do it through StreamYard, these other services, but you have to sort of link it to Substack. Those of you who are good at that, it's probably nothing, but for me, it's going to take a little bit of time. So this is something I just want to float out to you guys. So let me know if this is something that interests you on Substack. So email me, Daniel Horowitz at startmail.com. But for now, I'm going to try to put out the note form of just stories I'm looking at, maybe stories that some of them are the big stories of the week, some of them are not, but they ought to be things that I think are important. But maybe, covered it a little bit or don't have time to cover it on the show. That's going to be an auxiliary at my Substack, and that's going to have all the links of where to find any audio, video, print content from me. Um, you could find other than I'm not going to copy and paste obviously the Blaze columns because that's obviously we want you to subscribe there to our full content. And by the way, you can get full Blaze subscription for under $100 for the year. So definitely sign up at Blaze TV. So all right, enough about me, enough admin. I just had to get that out for the beginning of the year. So again, I want to get to my top 13 list. Losing my voice a little bit here. Just starting out fresh. I'm going to have to work up to it. Thank God my voice is a lot better than last year, but still, I got this granuloma on my voice box, so it's a little bit tough. So just bear with me. Anyway, Venezuela. So I was just thinking, it was kind of a quiet 2 weeks or so. And then suddenly, man, you wake up Saturday and Trump sent in Delta Force, grabbed Maduro and his wife from Venezuela, from Caracas, and flew them to New York City. So, everyone has their hot take on this and their predictions. I just want to start off by saying, pursuant to the name of my Substack, Liberating Truths, it's liberating when you're not tethered to anything. I'm not building a brand kissing up to Trump, nor am I building a brand that I have to be against him and criticize or oppose everything he does. And likewise with foreign policy, we've talked all year about this. We're not for Wilsonian interventionism that doesn't benefit America, but we're not reflexively against using the military either. So this is sort of a mixed bag, and there's a lot we don't know. And I've hinted to this towards the end of the year. So let's start off with the good. Right off the bat, just baseline thoughts here. Look, any day where our military, our tier 1 operators, flawlessly pull off an operation, especially in our hemisphere, pull out a puppet of China and Russia, bring him here, and screw you, that's awesome. I'm not going to complain about that. And in fact, we needed something like that before. Okay, I understand a lot of you have questions. I have questions too. Where is this coming from and where it's headed? But in a vacuum, we needed something like that. The Israelis have been pulling things like this off all the time, and everything we do militarily seems to fail. So we sort of needed that. I am all for that. I'm all for strike and maneuver. Okay, and that in a vacuum is strike and maneuver, not build and hold or hold and build. Hold and build is something we failed at. It doesn't benefit us, but leaves our soldiers precariously flung out in foreign war-torn countries. They get shot at, killed. We're busy trying to build their country. None of us want that. But this is great. Moreover, we do need to show China that we have some capabilities. And I think, one of the positives that came out from this is that, where is this? This woman, Jennifer Zhang, on Twitter, puts out a former Chinese journalist, Zhao uh, Langian, I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, said that during the U.S. military operation in Venezuela, Chinese military personnel were completely trapped. Their intel people didn't see it. They were trapped. They were humiliated. And that's great. So that is something I think we should celebrate. But as I started to note, and I don't want to prejudge this, but I noted it towards the end of the year. I was a little bit concerned. I was like, wait a minute. It just based on the degree of threat Maduro posed, it was just a little bit bizarre that suddenly we're focused on Maduro. It's just all this much. It's like, really? Is this all it is? Is it oil? Is it drugs? Like, if he's sending drugs and migrants, which he did, yeah, I'm all for going after him. I'm all for doing that, indicting him. I'm for executing him. And then, contrary to other people, I don't have a concern about Trump openly saying, I'm going to take their oil. I actually always agree with Trump on that. His contention, people accused Bush of forging a war in Iraq for oil. And the sad reality was he didn't. It was for stupidity. I'm all for taking their oil. I'm all for, us being the kings of the Western Hemisphere. I'm a very big fan of the Monroe Doctrine. But is that really where this is coming from? Is that really where this is coming from? If this were about drugs, why is Trump letting out drug traffickers, and why is he going weaker on marijuana, which is now almost as potent as cocaine and is really the gateway to that? And is destroying many, many cities, and that's a whole nother thing. He's gone all in with marijuana over the holiday break. So it's just a little bit bizarre. And then if this is about crushing the Maduro regime and extirpating Russian and Chinese influence, it appears as of now that we worked with the sitting VP, Delcy Rodriguez, to basically have a coup from within. I don't want to take away from the professionalism of Delta and these guys, but part of why it appears to have been so successful is that at the end of the day, we worked with his own admin to overthrow him. So, in many respects, she's even nuttier than Maduro and is in with Russia. So what is this all about? I mean, this was just all to just grab Maduro as a person. And then what? Somehow we're gonna, be down there. And again, like I don't care. I don't mind taking an evil guy that did bad things to America and grabbing him and killing him. I have no problem with that. You're not going to hear libertarian sophistry from me. But so that's strike and maneuver. But when Trump says, which he did, we're going to run everything. We're going to run everything. Fix it. Whoa. Isn't that what we were trying to get away from? So now we're going to be on the ground working with Maduro's VP. We don't need that. We got our own judicial coup in this country. We have so many problems in this country. The economy, healthcare, immigration, judicial tyranny, housing, welfare, like we see with the welfare fraud. Like we got a big problem here. So if this is going to be nation building, well that's different than just grabbing Maduro and bringing him to justice. So I don't want to prejudge that, but Trump's comments are very concerning. Moreover, I want to play something from Kristi Noem, what she said about immigration of Venezuelans, something to watch for. Immigration of Venezuelans, those with TPS status. So she was asked on Fox News Sunday, basically, well, how did you cancel TPS status if people would be sent back to Maduro? Well, now that's moot because Maduro is gone. But take a listen to what Kristi Noem had to say.
Venezuela today is more free than it was yesterday, and it's going to continue to be that way as long as President Trump is in the White House and is making sure that he's protecting the interests of the American people, because that ripple effect will continue to bring that kind of liberty to Venezuela as well. These programs, we're bringing integrity back to them. The decisions are made in conjunction with the State Department, with the White House, and then we at Homeland Security implement them and make sure that they are followed through. So every individual that was under TPS has the opportunity to apply for refugee status, and that evaluation will go forward. But we need to make sure that our programs actually mean something and that we're following the law. And that's how that decision with TPS was made.
Okay, so that's a big problem there. Now, I know she's being a little bit cagey here, but the idea of canceling TPS is that they have to go back, and especially now while Maduro is gone. But not the other way around, that, oh, TPS is for temporary, so therefore what? We're going to make them permanent? And they can apply for refugee status? See, again, and they're denying that. The Homeland Security on their Twitter put out something saying, oh, you were taking her out of context. But we have to watch out here that this doesn't repeat exactly what we didn't want to do in the Middle East, which is invade the world, invite the world. So that what now we own the dumpster fire in Venezuela. And then now what? We then bring in refugees. Again, I'm not trying to be like the Groypers here, where they're just reflexively any foreign intervention, any use of the military. But no, I don't. I already said I have no problem with strike and maneuver, and then I don't care about what happens next. We don't own it. But Trump is saying we will own it. Well, that's a different story. So I want to understand, first of all, how are you going to get the oil and not be marred and bogged down and have our troops in danger and attacked? Working with Maduro's VP. And how is that in our interest? Where is the cost-benefit analysis? So again, I support strike and maneuver. I support the Monroe Doctrine. I support kicking the Russians and Chinese and Hezbollah and Iran and Turkey out of our hemisphere. I mean, that's for sure. But I'm just a little bit, I'm sorry, there's a trust issue. When everything that was done in the first year was all about special interests, big tech, Qatar, you just got to wonder. It's just a little bit weird. This sudden obsession. No one really had this on their bingo card. Yeah, if this is all that came out of it, I'm fine with it. So anyway, we're going to be watching that as that develops. But I want to get back to, and I know I've taken 38 minutes here to get to it, but the end of the show, my list of 13 items. What does it mean to rise to the occasion, to meet the moment? What does that physically look like? Tangibly. What does it look like to be our Mamdani? And just clear the decks. Because remember, whether Trump acts boldly or tepidly, whether he acts conservative or liberal, whether he acts on the forces of freedom or the forces of AI technocracy, he's going to get crushed. And I would argue if he does the bad stuff, he's going to get crushed even more, because you'll get blamed for it without the good. So I want to list to you what I would deal with, what I would do, and then sort of, go from there. This also will double down as an outline for Conservative Review podcast for the remainder of the year. And obviously, we're not pigeonholed into this. We're going to focus on the issues that matter as they come up. So if there's new issues that we can't foresee, and I'm sure I'm leaving out some, this is not exhaustive, but about 13 items that I would focus on under the mantra of gold, God, land, and ordered liberty. And through this, I want to touch on some of the news of the day, and we're not going to get to everything we missed. Number one is healthcare. Doesn't mean it's the most important. It's just number one on my list. The reason is Republicans are trapped. Okay, Democrats set a trap. They made healthcare unaffordable with Obamacare, then added extra subsidies to basically take the pain away, but not really, because it's creating the inflation. and then had it expire at the end of the year. So Republicans and Trump they're going to get blamed for the high prices. They're going to get blamed for any inaction and for any action. Right? Obamacare is over with. And most of the public doesn't even remember that's what's causing this. So whatever Trump does will be dubbed as Trump care, including not doing anything. So they have to do something. So the best policy and political thing to do is the most right-wing thing to do. Privatize it all. Abolish all of Obamacare, the HMO Act, all that stuff. Make another budget reconciliation bill to have true free market health care. Rise to the occasion. Cut out the middleman. Okay? Cut out the middleman. Done. You got to deal with health care. And just like you saw with Democrats, they were willing to lose an election over it. And the policy endured. When you change the structure of healthcare, it's very hard to undo. But now the good news is with the Biden subsidies expiring, it's insolvent anyway, even from the Democrat perspective. So you have an opening. You got to use it. And I don't just mean a tweet like, oh, Obamacare is unpopular, it's unaffordable. You got to walk around campaign style mode, drive towards a specific bill, and done. Number 2, gold accounts. We're going to talk about this tomorrow more with Kevin Freeman. He's going to be our first guest of the year. And obviously we're pushing the states to do this, but that's only because Trump's not doing it federally. Trump, I don't know why he hasn't done it yet, but the IRS has to stop taxing transactional gold, and he's got to set up gold accounts so people could have their own personal gold standard. I want you to understand just the last year or two what your budget would have looked like had you been transacting in digital gold. That's really what it is. And we're going to talk more about that tomorrow. That needs to be part of the budget reconciliation bill. And we can't have this thing, we can have disparate issues. If you're going to worry about the parliamentarian rules, we're done. You got to meet the moment. You have this avenue to go and enact bold things. A lot of them will be popular, by the way. And even if they're not, they can't be more unpopular than telling the people the economy is great and getting nothing for it anyway and losing the election. You just may as well use your power. Number 3, immigration moratorium. Immigration moratorium. You will never have a better time with everything going on with the Somalis. You've essentially made your bed. You've messaged it. Lie in it. That needs to be just pass a series of budget reconciliation bills. And that needs to be another one. As part of that is defunding all court cases on deportations and state laws. And that leads me to number 4, broadly judicial reform. You need a judicial reform package, kicking the courts out of these issues. I don't have time to get into it, but Trump, we'll talk about it later in the week, but Trump has been denuded of any power to do anything. Well, he's not really, because the courts have no power. But he's listening to them. If Trump is going to listen to the courts and or not push judicial reform, then you're done. And the states are done too. Elections don't even matter. Okay? So you got to do that. By the way, just relatedly, I got to say, so we were able to send Delta Force and just grab a major foreign leader. And again, I'm not complaining. I agree with it in a vacuum. And Trump looks tough. Yet we haven't been able to deport this Garcia guy from Maryland, this criminal alien El Salvadoran gangbanger, after an entire year of litigation. One criminal alien. Think about that. And I think this is what's upsetting some people, even where you agree with Trump on foreign policy, but it's just the way he expends his let's just say Mamdani moments, meaning being that strong man, is just on kind of random things. Often we disagree, like with the data centers, but even where we agree, it's like, okay, but that's where you're blowing your wad. That's not meeting the moment. It's got to be on an immigration moratorium and judicial reform. Let's go on number 5, housing. Abolish all government intervention in housing. Stop the subsidies, stop the encouraging unaffordable mortgages, stop the Federal Reserve buying of MBSs. That is what is pricing young people out. That is what is making asset bubbles. But I put out a video, my last video. If you go and see our podcast on Rumble, I made a video over the break. Trump talked about, well, he wants to lower prices, but he doesn't want to ruin the values for seniors. Well, if that's where you're coming from, then no wonder why you're losing young voters. Housing cannot be a checking account. It needs to be a vital shelter, a consumer item that's affordable. If you want money, make money. That's not what housing is for. Certainly when it's done unnaturally by government. Number 6, welfare. There's got to be bolder welfare reform. You will never get a better opening than what Trump just talked about with the Somali fraud, which, by the way, was known about for 12, 13 years. Nothing was done about it. A lot of people are focusing on Somalis being incompatible with America, and that's true. And that's a great impetus for making the case for an immigration moratorium. But you can't ignore the other half of this. That there might be something unique about the Somalis, but these scams on welfare are happening everywhere. It was just reported a couple months ago in California that you have all these fake signups for community colleges to get funding, fake applications. This is not a bug, but a feature of an open-ended entitlement system. This is what's causing welfare, causing inflation. And this is why Trump has never had a better opportunity to tell the people, you want to know what is causing inflation and the cost of living crisis. It's these programs. Look at all the fraud. But you can't just, I'll tackle the fraud. The problem is states are able to be stewards of many of these programs, but the funding is coming from the money printing feds. The states need to be given the responsibility and flexibility on the issue. Devolve these programs to the states. You know why? States have to balance their budgets. States don't have a printing press. And states will be forced to deal with this. That's the lesson of Minnesota. Yes, there's something unique about the Somalis, and that's its own issue. But I don't want to make this all about immigration when it's also every bit as much about the open-ended entitlement state. Now, I wish we didn't have any of this, but I think the achievable thing to do is to devolve it to the states. And look, anything they do, Democrats come in there, they could reverse it, especially if they win the presidency and they have a trifecta eventually. But it's very hard structurally to end an immigration moratorium. You see what I mean? To end giving states welfare when you structurally change. But if you just do these like little one-off executive orders, that's not going to meet the moment. So that's 6. I figured I'd just get a little bit, some of what I think about the Somali situation. Get that out there. Number 7, we need a moratorium of all taxation for 10 years on small businesses below like $1 billion market cap. Small business, I don't mean like tiny, but like below $1 billion market cap. So it's not the massive, companies. Maybe have some sort of phase out so you don't create a cliff and discourage growth. You can work out the details, but rather than these random tax provisions, that's what we need to reprivatize the economy and say, I'm not going to, just do everything with the Mag 7 companies. And that leads me to number 8. which is Trump has got to reverse course on the data center stuff. He doesn't need to oppose it. Stop giving it special favors. That is the next Tea Party. You're going to get crushed if you cede that issue to Democrats. Democrats are starting to take advantage of that. Again, I'm just going through very quickly. These are, I could spend hours on each one, and that's what we're going to do. I'm just giving you an outline. Number 9, stop nation building. This does not mean to be strong, use the military when appropriate, tools of statecraft, diplomacy, but stop the nation building of Gaza, Lebanon, Syria, Qatar Akbar in the Middle East. Focus simply on keeping shipping lanes open in both the Straits of Hormuz and Bab al-Mandab. Obviously, relatedly, we have to have that same mindset in Venezuela. Meaning, when we say we need to focus more on our hemisphere, that's true, but it's not okay like any focus. If we replicate what we do in the Middle East here, then it's just as bad. Number 10, primaries. Primaries. I mean, we're going to focus on that. Okay? No matter what we do, it is almost a certitude that Democrats are going to win in 2026, and very likely they'll win in 28. So the question for us is, are we going to have leaders who meet the moment in the states we still win? Right now, we don't. We have primaries. Places like Florida, places like Texas, South Dakota, South Carolina, just to name a few. And again, this is what I might want to coordinate with some of you and have this town hall on my Substack if we do these live Q&As. Let's go through 2 more. Number 11, shut down, and this you don't really need legislation, shut down the Muslim Brotherhood and communist terror groups. I mean, full stop. One of the stories of 2025 was the year of assassinations and killings on our shores, like a third world country, both, leftist and also Islamic. It needs to be shut down, and state attorneys general need to do a better job going after CARE, going after Antifa, John Brown gun clubs, things like that. And then finally, we'll just end with 12. And again, there's more, but let's keep it our, I don't want to call it dirty dozen because this is the straight and narrow. Food security. We have to rebalance all subsidies so that we don't have Chinese-owned conglomerates getting all of them. Rebalance things back to local, homegrown, small farmers and ranchers, country of origin labeling, making it easier to buy food and meat from local farmers through deregulation. That's something I really, really want to focus on. These are things that you have to understand. You have to look at the triage, look at food, housing, general cost of living, healthcare, demographics, security. You see what I mean? The force multiplying issues. And you got to say, with the trifecta Trump has federally, I know, all narrow, this and that. He is king of the party like nobody before him. And with the trifecta, supermajority trifectas we have in red states, what is it you're going to do with the power you have now? I don't want to hear about, we have to win the next election or this or that. I want to hear about that. I want to hear about primaries. So that is sort of an outline for those of you who are coming new, who haven't heard the show over the last decade or so. This is an outline of focusing on the issues that matter, the way they matter, the time they matter, actually meeting the moment. I don't want to hear about the past. I don't want to hear about the future. I want to hear about now. What you're going to do with the power you have to, the best you can, build fortresses against what's inevitably coming and what already is here. Because frankly, the Republican Party is like the Democrat Party anyway. And that's a whole nother can of worms we'll get into. So let me know, Daniel Horowitz at startmail.com, what you want to discuss this year. I'm so happy to be back. I love the collaboration. I love the emails. And like I said, we're going to be doing this more. So if you're interested in my emails, we'll see how often, once, twice a week. And maybe if you want it more, if I have time, we'll try to do more. But my columns are at The Blaze, and this Daniel's Digest will be at Daniel Horowitz on Substack. We will, let me know if you'd be willing to do some sort of paid component, $5-10 a month, depending on what it is, maybe a couple tiers. And it's not in my wheelhouse to do this, but I got to be able to directly communicate with people so they're actually seeing what I'm putting out, because everything else is algorithmic slop. Substack, there's no BS. So I'm a big fan of it until that gets messed up, but it's kind of survived for a while. So hopefully that's good. And of course, the videos will always be posted at RM Conservative on Rumble. The days at least I post a video, always on audio on Twitter, on Stitcher and iTunes, and Horowitz Show at YouTube. May God bless us with a terrific, godly, successful year. Till tomorrow. Thank you for listening. And Micah 6-8.